What would Jesus say if you were afraid of death? Part 1. The shadow in the room. Imagine you are sitting alone in a quiet, completely empty room as the evening sun slowly dips below the distant horizon line. The long shadows lengthen across the cold floor, creeping like silent dark rivers through the space, and in that growing darkness, a familiar, suffocating weight settles heavily onto your chest. It is the quiet, completely unspoken terror that secretly haunts the edges of every human life, the profound fear of the absolute end. The fear of non-existence. The fear of leaving behind everything and everyone you have ever known, loved, built, and protected, only to step completely alone into an uncharted, silent, and endless void. If you are shivering beneath the heavy weight of this existential terror tonight, close your physical eyes for just a brief moment. Feel the air moving smoothly and quietly in your lungs, realizing that each single breath is a temporary gift from the Creator. And imagine that a gentle, strong hand is placed upon your trembling shoulder. A voice, perfectly clear, calm, and resonant with the ancient frequency of absolute divine love, breaks the heavy silence of your anxiety. What would Jesus say to you in this exact moment? He would look directly into your eyes, not with a sense of judgment, not with anger, and certainly not with disappointment at your lack of courage, but with the profound, aching empathy of someone who knows exactly what it means to be a fragile human being. He would look at your shaking hands and your racing heart, and he would speak these words to you. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. He understands that your deep fear of death is not a sign of spiritual failure, weakness, or a lack of true faith. It is the natural, completely inevitable cry of a human soul that was originally designed by God for eternity, suddenly forced to live in a fragile, temporary, decaying tent of flesh and bone. He knows the terror of the dark because he walked through the darkest valley himself. He knows the heavy, suffocating atmosphere of Gethsemane, where the cold sweat fell from his brow like great drops of blood under the crushing weight of imminent mortality. He does not mock your trembling, he comes to sit beside you in the dark. The fear of death often comes from our complete inability to see past the physical curtain of this world. We look at the cemetery, we look at the clinical medical monitors, and we see an absolute end to everything we know. But Jesus sees the entire tapestry of reality, from the very beginning of creation to the endless ages of eternity. To him, your life is not a brief candle waiting to be snuffed out by a cold wind. It is an eternal story written by the finger of God, and the grave is merely the turning of a page. He would tell you that the deep anxiety you feel is actually the ultimate proof of your divine origin. Animals do not lie awake at night wondering about the concept of eternity, they do not write poetry about the passage of time, nor do they weep over the concept of mortality. You feel this tension because your spirit recognizes that it does not belong to a dying world. You are a citizen of a permanent kingdom, currently traveling through a temporary wilderness. Your fear is simply the homesickness of a soul that has not yet reached its final destination. Do not try to suppress this fear on your own, and do not let it turn into despair. When the room gets dark and your thoughts begin to spin, remember that the one who holds the keys to life and death is standing right beside you. He does not require you to be fearless, he simply asks you to trust his presence. He is the light that shines in your darkness, and the darkness can never overcome him. Part 2. The metaphor of the seed. If you were to express your deepest terror to him, telling him how afraid you are of losing your hard-earned identity, your physical body, and your conscious awareness, he would likely smile gently and point you toward the natural world around you. During his time on earth, he loved to speak in the language of the creation, using the simple mysteries of things that grow, die, and rise again to explain the deepest secrets of the cosmos. He would tell you a secret hidden in plain sight within every forest, field, and garden on earth. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone, but if it dies, it bears much fruit. Consider the life of a tiny seed. If that seed had a conscious mind, it would look at the dark, damp, heavy soil of the earth with absolute horror. To the seed, being pushed into the cold ground looks like the ultimate destruction of its entire world. It looks like suffocating darkness, the complete loss of its hard, protective shell, and the terrifying end of its individual existence. The seed fights with all its might to hold onto its form, believing that the soil is a violent graveyard designed to erase it from the world forever. But the seed is fundamentally mistaken. The soil is not a graveyard, it is a womb. The disintegration of the hard, protective outer shell is not the tragic end of the seed's life, it is the miraculous unlocking of its true, hidden potential. Only by breaking apart can the glorious, majestic tree within it finally burst forth, reaching upward toward a vast sky it never knew existed, bearing sweet fruit and providing green leaves for the birds of the air. If the seed never broke, it would remain just a seed, cold, isolated, and limited. Jesus would whisper to your anxious heart, "Your earthly body is that tiny seed. Why do you weep over the inevitable cracking of the temporary shell?" Death is not the eraser of your being, it is simply the breaking of the heavy winter coat so that your eternal spring can finally begin. Think about the magnificent design of a grand tree. It is strong and deeply rooted, capable of weathering the greatest storms. Yet, none of its beauty would be possible if the original seed had refused to let go of its small, safe identity. The transformation requires a complete surrender, but that surrender leads to a life that is exponentially greater, more beautiful, and more permanent than anything the seed could have imagined. The same is true for your soul. The identity you hold onto so tightly right now, your physical appearance, your earthly titles, your material possessions, is just the hard outer shell of the seed. It is useful for this temporary season, but it is not who you truly are. When the shell breaks, you do not cease to exist. Instead, you are finally liberated to become the full, magnificent being that God designed you to be before the foundation of the world. So when you feel your physical body changing, aging, or weakening, do not view it as decay. View it as the natural preparation for the blooming that is to come. The shell must grow thin so that the spirit can eventually break free. You are not fading away, you are ripening for eternity. Part 3. The illusion of the horizon. Our human minds are constantly limited by what our physical eyes can see. We look at the world through a narrow window of time and space, assuming that if something moves out of our sight, it must be gone forever. When we stand on a beautiful beach and watch a grand ship sail away on the ocean, it moves further and further away until it suddenly disappears over the horizon line. To the people standing on the shore, the ship is officially gone. It has vanished into nothingness. They might weep and mourn, believing it has ceased to exist in their world. But at that exact same moment, on another shore across the vast ocean, a different crowd of people is gathered. They are looking out across the sparkling water, and they suddenly see a beautiful mast appearing over the horizon. They watch with excitement as the grand ship sails majestically into view, and they shout with immense joy, "Look! She is coming." Jesus would remind you that death is nothing more than a human horizon line. To the people left behind on earth, a passing looks like a tragic departure, a cold ending shrouded in tears, isolation, and grief. But from the perspective of the kingdom of heaven, that exact same moment is a spectacular, triumphant arrival. It is the moment the weary traveler finally pulls into the safe home harbor after a long, stormy, exhausting voyage at sea. He would speak to you the comforting words he once shared with his closest friends when their hearts were breaking with the fear of separation. "In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am you may be also." Heaven is not a strange, cold, foreign planet filled with sterile white clouds and distant, unfeeling spirits. It is described by the Creator himself as a home. It is the architectural masterpiece of a Father who knows your deepest needs, your favorite joys, and the true, uncorrupted design of your heart. You are not stepping into the unknown darkness, you are returning to the place you were always meant to live. Consider the reality of a long journey. When you travel to a distant land, you often feel fatigued, anxious, and unsettled by the unfamiliar surroundings. You tolerate the discomfort because you know that at the end of the trip, your home is waiting for you. You know that your own bed, your own family, and your own comforts are at the destination. Jesus wants you to view your entire earthly life through this exact lens. The hardships, the sicknesses, and the ultimate passing of your physical body are just the turbulent final miles of the journey. When you cross that horizon, you are not being exiled into a wilderness. You are being welcomed into the ultimate home, a place where every tear will be personally wiped away, where every broken piece of your heart will be perfectly mended, and where you will be surrounded by a love so thick and real that you will wonder why you were ever afraid. The people who have gone before you in faith are not lost. They have simply crossed the horizon ahead of you. They are standing on that eternal shore, watching the horizon, waiting for the day when your ship comes into view. Death cannot break the bonds of love that are rooted in Christ, because his kingdom connects both sides of the ocean. Part 4. The Sleep of Awakening. Throughout his time walking among us on earth, Jesus consistently did something extraordinary whenever he encountered the grim reality of death. He completely renamed it. He flatly refused to use the heavy, hopeless, and definitive vocabulary of the world. When a young girl passed away and the entire house was filled with loud wailing, crying, and professional mourners, he walked calmly into the room, looked at the weeping crowd, and said, "The child is not dead but sleeping." They laughed at him in their bitter grief and skepticism, knowing the clinical reality of her cold body. But he simply took the cold hand of the little girl in his, spoke a few words of absolute life, and she immediately stood up, fully restored, hungry, and alive. Later, when his dear friend Lazarus passed away and had been in the dark tomb for 4 long days, he told his disciples plainly, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him." To Jesus, the terrifying, unconquerable monster we call death is nothing more than a temporary afternoon nap. Think about how you feel when you are completely exhausted after a long, brutal day of hard physical labor. Your eyes are incredibly heavy, your limbs ache with fatigue, and your mind is completely tired. You do not fear your bed. You do not weep when you turn off the bedroom lights. You gladly surrender to the dark sleep, knowing with absolute certainty that you will open your eyes the next morning, fully refreshed, as a new day dawns through the window. He would say to you tonight, "Why do you fear the closing of your earthly eyes?" You will not experience a single second of blackness, loneliness, or non-being. The very final breath you take in this weary world will seamlessly blend into the very first breath of a reality so beautiful, so vivid, and so filled with light that your earthly life will feel like a fleeting, half-remembered dream. When you fall asleep at night, your brain does not cease to function, your identity does not vanish into nothingness. You simply rest, perfectly protected by the walls of your home, until the morning comes. In the same way, when a believer passes from this world, they are falling asleep in the secure, protective arms of Christ. The body rests, free from pain, free from cancer, free from the heavy burdens of age, while the spirit immediately awakens in the brilliant morning light of eternity. Imagine waking up from a long, painful nightmare. While you were in the dream, the terror felt completely real to you. The monsters chased you, the dangers were terrifying, and your heart raced with genuine fear. But the moment you open your eyes and see the sunlight streaming through your bedroom window, and you feel the safety of your own bed, the terror evaporates instantly. You smile, realizing it was just a dream. Jesus promises that your awakening in eternity will be so glorious that all the sufferings of this present world will instantly pale in comparison, feeling like nothing more than a brief nightmare that has permanently passed away. The transition is instantaneous. There is no waiting in the dark, no wandering in a void, and no cold loneliness. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. The moment your eyes close to the fading lights of this earth, they open to the face of Jesus, who has been watching over your sleep the entire time. Part 5. The Permanent Victory Over the Grave. The unique, world-changing power of Jesus' message about death does not come from abstract philosophy, clever human psychology, or nice poetic phrases. It comes from historical, undeniable action. He did not just stand safely on the shore and give motivational advice about the dangerous water. He dove directly into the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean of death, faced its absolute worst terrors, and swam back to the surface to prove to us that the water can be conquered. He stood before a weeping woman named Martha, whose heart was absolutely shattered into 1,000 pieces by the sudden loss of her brother, and he looked at her with an intensity that could shatter mountains. He said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live, and everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? He did not just say these words to comfort her emotions, he proved them on a Sunday morning in a garden tomb. He allowed the absolute worst that human malice, political corruption, and spiritual darkness could do to be inflicted upon his own innocent body. He let them crucify him. He let them bury him in the cold earth. He let them seal the heavy tomb with a massive stone. He let the silent cold of the grave hold him for 3 days, allowing death to believe it had won the ultimate victory over the Son of God. And then, with the effortless power of the author of life, he shattered the chains of death from the inside out. He walked out into the fresh morning sunshine, leaving the heavy burial clothes neatly folded behind him like an empty trophy. He turned the ultimate symbol of human terror into a completely empty room. When you are terrified of death, Jesus points you directly to that empty tomb. He says, "Look inside. The monster has been completely defanged. The iron prison door has been permanently kicked off its hinges. If I live, you will live also." The grave is no longer a dark dead end, it is merely a brightly lit hallway leading directly to the arms of the Father. Because of the resurrection, the grave has lost all its legal authority over you. It can no longer hold anyone permanently. It has been transformed from a permanent vault into a temporary storage room. Just as Jesus walked out of his tomb, He has promised that a day is coming when he will call your name, and your physical body will be raised incorruptible, immortal, and completely free from the limitations of decay. This is the rock-solid foundation of Christian hope. We do not serve a dead philosopher who died and remained in the dust of history. We serve the living one, who conquered the ultimate enemy so that we would never have to face it alone. When you walk through the final shadow, you are walking with the King who has already explored that valley, conquered its ruler, and paved a clear highway straight to heaven. You are walking with the victor. The grave tried to swallow him, but it choked on his life. And because you are united with him through faith, that same resurrection life lives inside you right now. The grave cannot hold you any more than it could hold him. Your victory was paid for and finalized on that Easter morning. Part 6. Living without the chain. The ultimate goal of Jesus' words to you is not just to comfort your mind regarding your final hours on earth. It is to completely, radically liberate you right now, in the present moment, while you still have breath in your lungs. The fear of death is the ultimate psychological chain used by the enemy to keep humanity in perpetual slavery. It is the hidden, poisonous root of almost all human anxiety, greed, selfishness, and desperation. When you live in constant terror that this short earthly life is all you have, you become frantic and fearful. You try to hoard money at the expense of others, you desperately chase fleeting, hollow pleasures, you become deeply envious of those who have more, and you experience constant, crushing stress, trying to squeeze every drop of joy out of a dying world. The fear of death turns you into a spiritual beggar, constantly fighting for survival. But when you truly listen to the voice of Jesus, the heavy chain breaks completely. When you realize deep in your soul that death has been thoroughly defeated, and that your future is safely, permanently secured in a glorious, eternal kingdom, an incredible weight lifts off your chest. You no longer have to live your life on the defensive, constantly protecting your small territory. You can finally afford to be incredibly generous, deeply loving, and profoundly at peace. You can look at the trials, the sicknesses, and the inevitable aging of your physical body with a quiet, courageous smile, knowing that your best days are always ahead of you. You can invest your time in things that actually matter, in loving people, in serving others, and in building a legacy that outlasts this earthly world. You don't have to fear losing your life, because your life is hidden securely with Christ in God. You become unshakable, bold, and free. He would conclude his conversation with you by looking deeply into your anxious heart, wiping away the remaining tears of your terror, and leaving you with this final, unchanging promise. Fear not, I am the first and the last, and the living one. I died, and behold I am alive forevermore, and I have the keys of death and Hades. You are safe in my hands. Take a deep breath, lay down your heavy burden of fear, and step out into your day with bold, unshakable joy. I am with you always, even to the very end of the age. Part 7. The peace that passes understanding. Now, as you sit back in the quietness of your room, let these truths settle deep into your consciousness. The darkness outside your window has not changed, but the light inside your soul has. The fear that seemed so massive and unconquerable just an hour ago begins to shrink when placed next to the immense majesty of the Savior. You do not have to figure out the mysteries of the afterlife on your own. You do not have to build a bridge across the great gulf. The bridge has already been built by the hands that were pierced for you. Your only task is to walk across it in simple, childlike trust. Whenever the cold whisper of anxiety returns, and it will try to return, do not argue with it. Do not try to fight the fear with your own human logic or willpower. Instead, hand that fear directly to Jesus. Remind yourself of the empty tomb, the metaphor of the seed, and the promise of the Father's house. You are not an orphan drifting aimlessly in a cold, accidental universe. You are a beloved child of the King of Kings. Your name is engraved on the palms of his hands, and he has already gone ahead to prepare a place specifically for you. Your future is not a dark question mark, it is a glorious certainty. So take another deep breath. Let the tension leave your shoulders. Let the peace of God, which passes all human understanding, guard your heart and your mind. Sleep peacefully tonight, knowing that whether you wake up tomorrow morning in this world or the next, you will wake up in the presence of the one who loves you perfectly. You are safe, you are held, and you are eternal. Part 8. The eternal perspective in daily life. To live with this eternal perspective means to change the way you see every single day of your existence. When you are no longer afraid of the end, you are finally free to truly appreciate the beginning and the middle. Every sunrise becomes a direct reflection of God's faithfulness. Every relationship becomes an opportunity to show His love, and every trial becomes a temporary testing ground for your faith. You no longer have to be crushed by the tragedies of this world. When you see sickness, injustice, or poverty, your heart still breaks, but it does not break into despair. It breaks into action, because you know that these dark things do not have the final word. You know that a day is coming when all wrongs will be made right, when disease will be permanently banished, and when justice will roll down like waters. This hope gives you a supernatural resilience. When the storms of life hit your house, the foundation does not move because it is anchored in the unshakable reality of Christ's resurrection. You can lose your job, you can lose your health, and you can even lose your closest friends, but you can never lose your inheritance in the kingdom of heaven. Jesus wants you to carry this bold, quiet confidence into every room you enter. When people around you are panicking over the uncertainties of the world, your peace should be a testimony to them. Not a peace born of ignorance, but a peace born of deep, unshakable knowledge. The knowledge that the battle has already been won. So do not look at your life through the short lens of a few decades. Look at it through the lens of eternity. Your time on this earth is a beautiful, crucial preparation for a grand reality that will never end. Live it fully, live it generously, and live it without fear. Part 9. The Promise of Restoration. One of the most beautiful aspects of what Jesus says about the future is the promise of complete restoration. Heaven is not just a place where we escape the bad things of earth, it is the place where everything good is redeemed, purified, and amplified. The body that was broken by disease will be made whole and strong. The mind that was tormented by anxiety or depression will be perfectly clear and filled with uncorrupted joy. The relationships that were severed by death or misunderstanding will be completely healed and restored in the light of truth. God does not throw away His creation, He redeems it. He whispers to you, "Behold, I am making all things new." This means that nothing you do in love on this earth is ever wasted. Every prayer you pray, every act of kindness you perform, and every moment you spend comforting someone else is an investment in that eternal reality. You are sowing seeds in this world that will bloom in the next. So when you think about the end of your life, do not focus on what you are leaving behind. Focus on what you are moving toward. You are moving toward the ultimate reunion, the ultimate healing, and the ultimate realization of your purpose. You are moving toward the face of the one who created you and gave His life to save you. Lay down your fear at His feet right now. Let Him replace your anxiety with His perfect love, which casts out all fear. Step forward into your life with confidence, knowing that the one who started a good work in you will faithfully bring it to completion on the day of Jesus Christ. You are secure for all eternity.